And welcome into this first episode of Timeout with the Guys podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Brad Burton. Alongside with me here is Carter Foley. Carter, good to be here with you this evening. So, Timeout with the Guys, this is a sports podcast that was created by both of us. So we figured that while in the time being with COVID-19 happening, with not a whole lot of opportunities happening, why not start something new? And boy, it is really good to be here right now. So like I said, this is Time Out with the Guys podcast, a sports podcast, and just want to start with a little intro because we got a great show this evening for you. A lot of baseball talk, NBA talk, and also football talk as well. Dive into that here shortly, but just want to give a little intro for you right now. So like I said, my name is Brad, and just a little bit about me. I went to St. Ambrose University, of course, as you can see on my sweatshirt.
Hey, it's a good-looking sweatshirt.
It is a nice sweatshirt. Very nice sweatshirt. If anybody knows me very well, I am a diehard Chicago sports fan. Cubs, Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks. I also got a soft side for the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Lakers. So that's a little bit about me. Not a whole much more is exciting. And Carter, like I said, it's good to be here with you this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we've been wanting to do this podcast for a few months now, and
Yes.
Today's the first day of hopefully many podcasts down the road. So obviously it's a great experience to be talking sports and doing this, and it's just a great experience too for us. Obviously we both were doing this for a while too before obviously COVID hit, so it's good to kind of talk sports and kind of get to talk about it at any level that we want to. Obviously there's no rules because we're kind of the dudes that are in charge of everything. So
true.
obviously it's a really fun adventure, and we're really excited to bring you guys along for it.
Absolutely. This has definitely been it's been a pretty hard couple months, as we all know, no doubt, with COVID-19 shutting down almost everything around the country. And boy, they always say don't take everything for granted. And, of course, I've always known that. But boy, when it comes even to the little things, you can sit back on your couch, watch a college basketball game, watch an NBA game, watch a baseball game, watch a football game on a Sunday and just decompress. But boy, during these past couple months, it's been very tough. But luckily now, live sports is back for the time being. We got a great show for you tonight. And Carter, like I said, it's good to be here with you tonight. And hey, I'm really excited for this.
Absolutely.
So with that, let's dive into our first topic right now. And this has been probably the biggest topic of probably the past week or so with MLB and COVID-19 happening. So baseball got going just about over a week and a half ago. It's been quite the journey so far for some teams. First, the Miami Marlins were the first team to really get hit hard with the COVID-19 pandemic. And then next was the Philadelphia Phillies. And now we're dealing with the St. Louis Cardinals. Players for them, of course, today, Yadier Molina tested positive for COVID-19. So definitely he will be in quarantine for at least the next 2 weeks, I'm assuming. But now with so many teams, well, I guess 3 teams, but really when you look at it, that's quite a bit right now, especially early on. When you look at it, they can't play games. Games are being postponed. And it's not just affecting those 3 teams. It's affecting other teams, too, like the Yankees, for example. They were supposed to play the Phillies, and then they had to get called off, too. So really, it's not just those 3 teams being affected by it. It's the other teams that they're supposed to play that are being affected by it as well. So now with baseball in a bit of a hole right here, you could say, what's the chances they get through the regular season? Are they going to get through it without any issues going the rest of the way? Certainly, it would be no surprise if more players from other teams test positive. That's just kind of how the deal works out sometimes. We saw it in the NBA with Rudy Gobert. He tested positive, and it just kept dragging on and on and on throughout all the NBA teams. But now with baseball, here we are, and some players were even deciding that it's not worth this year to play now. And I get it, because here's the thing. There's more important things to life than getting sick and potentially having to deal with severe illnesses. I totally get that. But with baseball, it's just they are in a tough spot right now. Commissioner Rob Manfred, who, of course, people know I'm not the biggest fan of right now with how he's been handling things. But certainly, though, we hope that baseball can get through this scheduled 60-game season, get into the playoffs, and we could potentially have a World Series, because if they don't have a World Series this year, for example, boy, it's been over 20 years now. 1994 was the last time they didn't have a World Series because of the strike then. So does baseball get through this season despite COVID cases going up in some organizations?
I definitely think it's not going to it's not going to finish. I mean, like you said, we've seen a lot of positive cases around a bunch of different teams. So obviously that's not a good sight. And, kind of like we'll talk a little bit later about the bubble situation between the NBA and the NHL. Obviously, what they've been doing has worked out fantastic. There's been 0 positive cases over the last few weeks since they've been there. So it kind of makes you think, would they have been more successful if they were in a bubble situation? Obviously, yeah, I believe so. And I wish they would have done that to begin with, whether it be in a central location like Arizona or Florida. I think that would have been the best move. And it's unfortunate that now, they're kind of looking back at it and probably regretting it. Hindsight 2020, unfortunately. But at this rate, if they really don't change anything, I don't see the season happening. I don't see a world season happening. I don't even see the playoffs happening before then. So obviously that's really unfortunate. But maybe they'll make some changes to hopefully fix it. But at this rate, it's not looking so good.
No, it's definitely not, and definitely having no playoffs and no World Series would definitely be devastating for sure. Because people who know me very well, and baseball is no doubt the sport I tend to follow the most. And but hey, I totally get why if they got to call off the season, they have to do it. So it is what it is. Yeah, it's gonna suck and stuff because we saw what happened back in March with March Madness getting called off.
Mm-hmm.
That was heartbreaking for sure because that's the best time of the year. Of course, it gets a lot of people mad like me, but because I always get screwed over by some team. But overall, though, it's just that you look at what the NBA has done with the bubble. They've done a great job. Now, certainly with baseball, there's more challenges for sure, but I think at the end of the day, though, you have to understand that what's at stake here right now. Look, I get it. We all want to get back to our normal lives, going out to restaurants, going out to bars, etc. Just going out and having a good time with our friends, family, whatever the case may be. So I think for right now, though, would you rather have this be a short-term problem? Granted, I guess you can say it hasn't not been a short-term problem because this has been going on now for several months now. But would you rather have this be a 2020 problem or have it drag on into 2021 and beyond? Pretty simple, I would say. So really, I think for the players, look, I get it. When you go into a city, you like to go out, explore, and just check out the sites when you're not playing a game. But for right now, though, I think when you get to your hotel, you got to stay there when you're not going to be at the ballpark. So again, it's pretty simple right there. I get it. We all want to get back to our lives, but for right now, though, I feel like things are being kind of rushed in a way too as well. With sports trying to come back so soon. Well, I guess now it's been several months now, like I said. But with the NBA, though, they really carefully planned this whole thing out. But with baseball now, they're really just kind of putting themselves in a tough spot. And I get it. Rob Manfred says we're not quitters, but would you rather have more players test positive from organizations and then have to call off the season, disappoint the fans, or just maybe have to, or maybe establish some strict rules?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, you had a bunch of different good points. I think the MLB should have been definitely harsher too. Of the players being able to not leave their hotel rooms as soon as they land. I think everything needed to be probably room serviced in if you had to eat or anything like that. I think they should just be there and not have the ability to roam around wherever the city or anything like that. And yeah, I mean, like we mentioned, the bubble. Obviously, that's a really important factor that the NBA and NHL have done, and they've been so successful. So like you said, I mean, it's just a lot of things that the MLB is probably going to look back on and hopefully adjust if there was anything to happen like this again.
Yeah, absolutely. And with baseball again, are they going to get through the season? But now we see some players from teams opting out. Most notably, the biggest one here was Brewers outfielder Lorenzo Cain. And Lorenzo Cain, he is he has been a really good player throughout his career. He actually came up with Milwaukee at the beginning of his career in the Zach Greinke trade, but was shipped off to the Kansas City Royals, won a World Series championship there back in 2015. Went back to the Brewers in 2018, and he's done a tremendous job for him, leading them to the playoffs. But now this year, he's just saying it's not worth it. I don't think it's going to be worth the chance because he is a guy that does have young kids, does not want to get them infected with the virus because we know who knows what this virus really contains, really. And I think we're starting to see athletes are starting to see the bigger picture here. There's more bigger things to sports, to life in sports. So I get it why he decided to opt out. And look, he's a really good player. I love Cain. He's phenomenal. Of course, when he beats up on the Cubs, it's not so fun. But no, he's a good player though. He makes baseball fun, and that's what you like about these types of players. Like, look, Albert Pujols. He was a Cubs killer back when he played for the St. Louis Cardinals. But I was young back then. Of course, I didn't like the guy because he always beat up on them. But now, baseball is always fun. And of course, you can go, with the NBA and football, even hockey too. It's always fun when great players, even from different teams, especially on your teams that you strongly dislike, when they're playing, that's fun. That's good for the game. So I think for Lorenzo Cain, he sees the big picture here. Look, this season, it's not even a full season, really. You're only playing about 2 months and such. If you do good, you do good into the postseason in October, get through that. But I think right now, though, he sees the bigger picture here, like I said, and he just wants to get ready for 2021. And I totally get that. Look, do what you gotta do. Protect your family. Protect yourself first off, and then make sure your family is going to be safe. So I definitely see his point where he's coming from.
Yeah, I definitely don't blame him at all for opting out. Obviously, every person or every player has their own reasons for opting out. Is it unfortunate? Of course, but you have to put the player first. And obviously, like you mentioned, his family is very important. He could have, elderly parents as well that live with him. Like, you obviously never know the situation behind it. So, it's unfortunate that, he's opting out, but then again, you can't blame him. Obviously, the MLB has handled this situation, in my mind, very poorly. So, it's what's going to happen. And, in a way, I kind of wish that a lot of these kind of top guys would start opting out, and maybe the MLB would start taking it serious. I think they're just kind of waiting for everything to get out of control. And once that happens, it's obviously going to be way too late. So, I'm just, again, kind of disappointed, but, it is what it is.
Yeah, kind of now shifting gears right here to the other sport leagues here, the NBA and the NHL. Both those leagues inserted a so-called bubble right there, where, of course, we know with the NBA, they are currently down in Orlando, Florida right now. And boy, I'll tell you what, with the NBA getting started back up, it's been really phenomenal, which we'll get into here later on. But with the so-called bubble, though, well, of course, it is called the bubble. It's definitely been something that we thought our players are going to take seriously. And yes, we see some players try to get out of that bubble, but once they do, though, they're facing some severe consequences from some other teams that they were with. But with the NBA bubble and of course the NHL bubble, I would say that's done a really good job for both, for all the teams that are trying to, either in the playoffs or trying to fight to get into the playoffs. Of course, with the NBA right now, there's some teams still trying to fight their way in. But with the NBA bubble, though, because we know that, sure, maybe the players at times felt like maybe they've been held hostile or whatever the case may be. But reality is, though, they are in a good place down there. They can still go out and do some things at the resort in Orlando, down there in Disney World. So I think, though, for Adam Silver, he's done he's done a phenomenal job as the NBA commissioner. I think we can all agree he's, no doubt the best active commissioner right now in all of Major League Sports right now. But to insert a bubble, though, and to kind of plan this out carefully, piece by piece, I thought was a very good idea, because we kind of saw they were laying out some options right here. Players tend to go back to the workout facilities at the team arenas where they play at, but eventually that wasn't going to be safe to do because, of course, we all know some states have certain restrictions on there where you can travel and where you can't. But I think for Adam Silver to lay out this plan was definitely the best thing for them. And yes, is it kind of weird seeing them play down in Orlando without no fans? Sure, but they got the virtual fans, which I think is very cool. It still makes the game feel real at times too, like they're actually playing at, you can say, the Staples Center, Madison Square Garden, the United Center, wherever it may be at. So that's a really cool thing that they're doing right there. And I think also too, it's really good for these, again, we're obviously in tough times right now, and the NBA could have easily said, we got called off this season. Sorry to all the teams like the Lakers, the Bucks, the Clippers, that were having terrific seasons, that were probably destined to make an NBA championship run. But I think this was a really smart move by them to insert this bubble. That way they can make this happen. Same with the NHL too. They've done a really good job with that as well, and keeping the players safe and making sure they're getting tested daily. And that's going to be the key thing for these two sports to keep on going, because baseball and football, they should be taking notes right now from these two leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned, a lot of good points of, the NBA and NHL being in the bubble, 0 positive cases for the last few weeks, which has been absolutely incredible. And obviously great job for Adam Silver and the NHL commissioner as well. Yeah, I mean, they've done a great job, and they've obviously thought about their players in advance. Obviously, the NBA players are in Orlando at the Walt Disney Resort. And, there's a lot of things to do there. They got bowling alleys, they go to practice, they play games and stuff. And I know even before on social media, we were watching a lot a lot of the players like Luka Doncic and Boban fishing in the ponds out there, and apparently they actually stocked the pond with like 10,000 fish. So I mean, just thinking about the players, they're going to be there for a long time, especially the teams that are going to make that deep playoff run, especially in the West, like the Clippers, Lakers, in the East, Bucks, Celtics, 76ers, etc. So, definitely thinking about those guys being there for the long haul, and they got it pretty good. And obviously keeping the players safe is the most important thing. And like you said, I mean, they've really done that so far. So definitely very proud of the NBA and NHL. And like you mentioned again, I really hope the NFL, at least since their season hasn't started yet, will take notes on this, because that is so important if they want to finish their season or not.
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at it, of course, some people say, well, it's very tough to insert a bubble. But I think right now, though, of course, yeah, you can't obviously put all these baseball players and these football players in a certain location and just play. There's just so many people right there. But I think you could implement some strict rules, though, when you're traveling. So, like, for example, when the Chicago Bears travel up to Green Bay to play against the Packers, whenever that may be, hopefully they get to that point during the season, because we know the NFL, boy, they'd be lucky to get through the first few weeks of the season before cases start skyrocketing, because we know the second wave is projected to come around that time. But for the Bears, though, to travel up to Green Bay, I think, okay, some teams, though, when you get to the hotel, stay there and just don't do a whole lot. Again, there's a lot of challenges to this, but I think, though, it's definitely worth the shot, though, to make it work. I mean, again, you got to keep these players, safe. And I get it. They have the itch to go out into the public, check out some places. I totally get that. But right now, though, it's just not worth it. We know that. Look, I get it. We all want to get back to our normal lives. We all want to get back out and just socialize. But for right now, it's just not the right time. And this is how we'll get back on track in the sports world, when leagues don't have to worry about, players getting, testing positive for COVID or getting sick, whatever the case may be. So I definitely think, though, that's going to be the thing that the NFL needs to do. Same with, same with MLB, if they want to, try and keep this going, because right now, Carter, like you said, I'm with you on that. If baseball keeps doing what they're doing, there's really not a good chance we're going to have a postseason in the World Series. I'm sorry to all the fans out there. Look, I get it. It's going to suck. But for right now, though, they have to implement some very strict rules to these organizations.
Yeah, obviously, COVID has been, not great for us.
No.
It's not been great for anybody, and everybody's been struggling through this for the last couple months. And if you're the NFL, you definitely have to, think about, would you rather lose a little bit of money or a lot of money? Because if you don't play a season, or if you play a season, 3 or 4 weeks, and then it gets canceled, I mean, obviously you're going to lose tons of money. So, they really have to come up with a plan. It seems like really they still don't have anything really set in place, and, maybe they could just be having some internal discussions, but at this point, it's not looking so good. And, for the sake of the players, obviously you would hate to, have a lot of those players get COVID eventually down the line. And unfortunately, they could get really sick, and some of them could even pass. It's like kind of a sad part of it, but it's definitely a possibility. So, and even the coaches too, the older coaches as well. So, really just have to think about that. And I hope the NFL doesn't wait, because, it could be ugly.
I feel like that the NFL, now this is just my guess here, because when COVID started to really become a major issue here in the United States, we saw that, we saw cases start to go up. The whole country was shutting down basically all places around the world pretty much too. And of course, we know with football, they're scheduled to start, or they were scheduled to start up there in late July with training camp, and then of course preseason in August, get the regular season kicked off in September, and just go from there. So you think with football, maybe they just kind of, maybe they betted on it that, okay, right now it's March. Yes, we got the draft coming up, but we'll do that virtually, which was a very good job, by the way, by them. Of course, it was kind of cool to see all the, they're inside their houses. Of course, Jerry Jones has that big yacht there. So, but anyway, getting back on track here, with football, I think they might be just betted on themselves, and unfortunately, they're losing that bet right now. Again, I don't know what's happening with them. Roger Goodell has a better explanation, I'm sure, but for right now, though, boy, it's just tough right now. It's just tough because, like we said, with football, who knows if they'll even get through their entire season, because you have to know it's going to be weird having sports in the springtime if that does tend to be the case. Of course, we know with some college teams right now, they're tending to do that, or even not have a season at all, period. So I definitely think right now, for some sport leagues, of course, the NBA and the NHL, they've done a terrific job of doing of inserting a bubble, keeping the players safe. And yes, there's still things for them to do down there. It's not like they're just cooped up in their hotel room when they're not playing. They're still able to kind of get out, stay at the resort, and just do what they gotta do. So I think though, for football, there's a lot of question marks above their heads right now, and of course for us too as fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Just they really have to come up with a plan.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, like we talked about with college, sports being canceled or being canceled and moved to the spring there as well. Again, because we know with college sports, there's student athletes too. So you got to think about the students there as well. And here we are, just a few weeks away from school starting back up in college. So again, how do you see this playing out and stuff? Because we know that there's going to be a lot of rules, for these players to follow. But again, we know that these 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, of course, we're only a few years older, but they definitely have the, itch, to still maybe just think I'm healthy, I'm going to be okay, I'm young. But eventually, though, they could contract the virus, and then pretty soon, before you know it, it starts to spread around campuses as well. Like for example, the University of Iowa definitely could have an issue if that tends to be the case. All college campuses across the country too, I would assume.
Yeah, and I kind of gave this explanation before too when I was talking about this as well. Is even if you're a head coach of a football team and you tell your Division I quarterback, hey, or the whole team, obviously you can't go out, you can't do this, blah blah. That doesn't stop Sally, who goes out every weekend, going to the bar. She contracts it, and then she sits right next to your quarterback, and then he gets it. So, I mean, when you go to class, I mean, that's like the worst place that it could get contracted. So, there really is, I mean, no good way of trying to solve that situation. So, I think it's really good that a lot of them are being moved to the spring, and it's just obviously going to hopefully prevent a lot of issues in the future.
Oh, for sure. And boy, like you said, we know college students, they do have the urge to just go out to the bars and stuff. Look, I get it. That's a good time because you get to go out, decompress away from class, from whatever you got to do. But for right now, though, boy, it's just going to be really tough it's going to be really tough. I think there's a lot of challenges ahead, and I think these challenges will continue to carry on and stuff. But again, we'll see what happens here. It's definitely going to be an interesting couple weeks and stuff, maybe even months now too, because we know this is no doubt going to be an issue throughout the rest of the year. But and it's kind of speaking of COVID, right now, of course, like I said earlier, it was affecting the St. Louis Cardinals. They are, of course, the latest team to be affected by the virus. And, and with the Cardinals series against the Brewers were postponed. The Tigers was just called off yesterday. And reports are now, too, that players went out to a casino before this outbreak started to occur with the team. So I tell you what, this does not look good for the St. Louis Cardinals right now. Look, I get it. This is really going to be I'm just at a loss for words right now because, look, I get it. We all want to go out and do things, but for right now, though, you still want to play baseball. These players have been urging to play baseball. They've been all over, they've been all over Rob Manfred wanting to play and stuff. But then here you are, you finally get a chance to play, but then you're still going out though, putting yourself at risk and others of getting the virus. And look what happened. Again, I'm not trying to say, well, of course they are probably at fault for this because they're the ones that made that decision. But look at the big picture, like I've already mentioned several times already. What's more important? Playing baseball, maybe just having some restrictions there. Look, I can't do this, but come next year, things hopefully will be back on track. Or just right now, just go out and act like everything is going to be okay, because right now it's not okay, because obviously now players are being affected with the virus.
Yeah, and kind of like we mentioned earlier too, of the NBA and NHL being in that bubble, that's a situation that would never have happened if the MLB was in the bubble. So again, looking at these different situations that are happening, it's making it more and more clear that should have been the very first thing that the MLB did to have a successful season that lasted the whole time. It's unfortunate that they haven't done it, and we're looking at the results. And obviously too, I think that Rob Manfred should have definitely had maybe some more stricter guidelines as well, obviously telling the players like, hey, you got to stay in your hotel rooms, to avoid things happening like that. So it's definitely unfortunate that obviously a lot of the Cardinals players and team personnel got the virus, and obviously hope they have a speedy recovery. But again, it's just that's what happens when you're not in the bubble during a pandemic.
No, not at all. It's just very unfortunate right now. And of course, we know that the St. Louis Cardinals, they were scheduled to play the Chicago White Sox at the Field of Dreams site there in Dyersville, Iowa. This is going to be the first Major League Baseball game in Iowa this year. Originally, that was supposed to be the Yankees and White Sox, but eventually, but the Yankees being in New York and stuff, Governor Andrew Cuomo really, set down some strict rules about travel restrictions. So the Yankees, no doubt, had to be, set back, and the White Sox had to find another opponent to play, and that was going to be the St. Louis Cardinals. So with this game not happening this year, of course, it was scheduled to happen on August 13th. It's no surprise right now that it's not going to happen because right now the state of Iowa is still struggling with cases going up, still trying to figure out what's going on. But I think this was the right thing to do, no doubt. It's not a surprise. I get it. They've worked so hard to to get that field in shape. Of course, they were building a new baseball field there. Of course, they can't play at the field that was in the movie because it wasn't up to Major League standards, which of course it wasn't. But still, that was no doubt going to be a very cool moment for not just for baseball, but for the state of Iowa as well. But I totally get it. It is what it is right now at this point. But right now, the games are scheduled to happen there in 2021. So that will definitely be cool to see. Hopefully, if cases aren't going to be a factor there no more. But like I said, it's no surprise. So that this game had to be called off. This was the right thing to do for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, if you have to wait a year or even two, hopefully it is just a year. But, if it is two, obviously they're keeping everybody safe. So definitely wouldn't be disappointed in the decision. But, I think it's a great idea to just hold off on a year and, come back in a year from now, see what's happening, see if obviously the vaccine should be out by then. And, things should be kind of returning to normal. So hopefully we can have a game next year. Obviously, like you mentioned, Iowa does have a lot of cases right now. We are one of the red states. So, it's definitely important that we don't, have a game and have those players come in and obviously could contract, the virus as well, just from being here in general. So, I think it's a really smart idea. And, if you got to push it back a year or two, I think it's going to be all right.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we know that this was the right thing to do. Certainly, it's a bummer for all the baseball fans in Iowa that wanted to go up there and see it, but it's going to be really hard to social distance up there. That's been one of the biggest things so far is the social distance. Of course, wear a mask when you can, when you're out in public. So I think that's what a lot of people need to keep on following right now if we want to get through this whole thing. But certainly, though, baseball we all know is in a tough spot. Football we'll dive into here later on in this episode. But now moving on now to the NBA, like we talked about. Boy, I'll tell you what, this has been such a fun return.
Oh yeah,
I get it. It's been a little weird seeing basketball in late July, early August, and it will continue to carry on. Be weird watching the finals in late September, early October, but at this point, as sports fans, I think we would take whatever we can at this point because, like I mentioned, it's been a very long, hard couple months here since the beginning of March. March 12th, I believe, is when the NBA had to suspend operations, and Adam Silver did take a lot of heat for this too as well. They said he rushed it, but I tell you what, though, had he not rushed it, the NBA could have been in some very big trouble with more cases possibly going up, but. Like I said, it's been so great to see the NBA come back and some games like the Clippers and Lakers. Boy, that was such a fun game to watch. A very, when it's the Battle of LA, this is definitely going to be one of the most fun matchups to watch here. And I'll tell you what, seeing LeBron back, seeing Kawhi, and Paul George, Anthony Davis, all those four players, we know they're very dominant players around the league. Just so good to see them back out there and really trying to make a run for a possible championship.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely a really good way to come back into the NBA season after basically a 4-month break for these guys. And obviously, what a great matchup to see the Lakers and the Clippers play in the bubble. And it was really cool to, just watch these guys play again. Obviously, we probably will be seeing these guys in the playoffs, play each other or, make a deep playoff run. So definitely going to have to get used to these teams. And it was just such a great and exciting game. Obviously, it went down to the wire and, a lot of the main players for both of these squads had an incredible game. As you saw, AD, scored a lot of points in this one. So yeah, it was just a really exciting game to watch.
Oh, for sure. And Anthony Davis, he's been such a superstar for the Lakers this year. Of course, LeBron's been the leader of this team, and of course we know about the Lakers right now. They're playing with heavy hearts after the tragic death of Kobe Bryant. And fun fact I saw here yesterday was that the Lakers, of course, they clinched the number 1 seed in the West. Last time they did that, they won the NBA championship. So hey, is history will history repeat itself? You just never know. So I'm definitely excited to see how this is all going to carry out. No doubt these two teams here for sure. We knew going into this season they were definitely going to be battling for the top spot, and of course, other teams out in the West too were going to be fighting for the top spot as well. But no doubt about the Lakers, because LeBron was hearing all the rumors where he's washed up, he's done, so and so. But I think right now, though, this is definitely the best. I think this is the best of LeBron we've seen so far. Even at 35 years old, he's playing like he's 25 years old still at times, just very dominant. And I think we're starting to see kind of a more LeBron not taking matters into his own hands as we did back when he was in Cleveland, maybe early in his career there down in Miami. But with AD being there now, it takes some of the pressure off him now to be able to score more points. And no doubt that this Lakers team, this has been one of the best teams we've seen in quite some time, because the Lakers over the past couple of years have been really struggling with guys getting hurt, and then of course you thought Lonzo Ball was going to be the guy going forward, but that wasn't the case. And then Brandon Ingram was also traded to the Pelicans there. But LeBron James and the AD, they've done such a great job there. And boy, this Lakers team will be fun to watch throughout the rest of the season.
Oh yeah, definitely looking forward to watching playoff LeBron have 4 months of rest and play in the playoffs. It's definitely going to be exciting. But yeah, like you mentioned, having such a great player like AD on your team to help you out. Obviously, it's been hard for LeBron the last few years, even when he was in Cleveland, to just kind of get some assistance. But when you get a guy like Anthony Davis on your team to kind of take some of the scoring load off of you. Obviously, LeBron's getting older and AD's still pretty young. It's good to have that extra option. And obviously, it is unfortunate for the Lakers that they don't have Avery Bradley. Obviously, he didn't feel safe coming to the bubble. Definitely makes sense for him. But they're definitely going to be missing him. Obviously, they did get J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters to kind of help with that. But Avery Bradley was just such a good defensive guard as well. So they're definitely going to miss his defense during the playoffs. But I think this Laker team could definitely make a playoff run. And would I be surprised if the Lakers went to the finals? I absolutely would not. I think they definitely have the team to do it. And it's just only time will tell,
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely been such a long road, to get to this point here for so many teams, because we saw that the Lakers were one of the top teams in the league, especially out there in the Western Conference. But when you have an older LeBron and somewhat of a still young Anthony Davis, that's a really good combination right there, because you see LeBron, of course, probably in the next 4 to 5 years, he could be hanging up he could be retiring, but then when Anthony Davis is still going to be there, no doubt he could still lead this team and still keep it at a consistent level there. So that's going to be really huge right there for this Lakers team. And for the Clippers themselves too, like I said, they've been a fun team to watch. This has really been the battle of the LA teams in the Western Conference, and usually it was always kind of like when the Lakers were doing really good, the Clippers were not doing so good, and then it kind of reversed in some ways. The Clippers started doing really good, but then the Lakers started to fall off there with some guys getting older, and then of course some retirements occurring there too. But once they got LeBron in there and got Anthony Davis in that trade last summer with the Pelicans, which was I would say that trade was a win-win for both sides, no doubt. So I definitely think, again, both these teams here, they are going to be in good hands going down the road, not just for this season, but for many years beyond. Probably the next few seasons, no doubt, these two teams will be fighting for the top seed in the Western Conference.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, like you said, really fun, entertaining game. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard had a chance here to, possibly, score the tie or even go to OT, and obviously gave it off to Paul George and he missed it. Close games like that, it's definitely tough to lose them, but exciting game nonetheless, and really excited to watch these two teams hopefully battle for position again down the line.
Oh yeah, for sure. And boy, again, this was a very close matchup, as we see right there. And of course, we knew going into this game, this was definitely going to be a close matchup for sure. But it just all depends on what team was going to score the most points. And the Clippers, no doubt, they were shooting the ball very well, but the Lakers just got to go at the right time when they needed to. And turnovers, no doubt, killed the Clippers right there. And turnovers, though, definitely going to play a factor if you keep on, if they keep on happening. So I definitely think for the Lakers, that's what helped them out a lot, was protecting the basketball, not being too careless with it. So I definitely give credit to, or I definitely give kudos to the Lakers, for playing good basketball, clean basketball too. Of course, at times they were showing some rust, but no doubt though, these two teams, they put on one hell of a show.
Yeah, and the Clippers are missing Montrezl Harrell too, who was a good guy to come off the bench for them. So obviously you see the points in the paint being 40 to 24. Obviously AD is a monster down there, and they have JaVale McGee as well for the Lakers. So obviously that's where those points come from. And they're definitely missing Montrezl Harrell, and he's still kind of a TBD to come or not. So I definitely missed him in this game, but nonetheless it was a really close one.
Yeah, for sure. And no doubt, kind of a story going into the game was Anthony Davis. We know that he suffered an eye injury a couple of days previous to this game happening, but he was able to get out there, play phenomenal basketball, and really just put on again a great show for the Lakers. And Paul George, the same deal for him as well. Really just a phenomenal job by both these players. Of course, we're kind of expecting more of LeBron and Kawhi, showing here, but definitely no doubt when these two players, or these two superstars, I should say, no doubt they are also one of the top players here in this league. And Anthony Davis, kind of takes a lot of heat too, saying how if the Lakers win the championship, or if they do win the championship, it won't mean much to him. But boy, he's been playing no doubt the best basketball of his career, and I think being out there in LA is the best thing for him. Same with Paul George as well, being back out there in Southern California since he's from there. Yeah,
definitely. Both those guys are happy to be in California, especially in LA, and both, like you said, had a great game, and Paul George was super dangerous in the third. I thought, honestly, he couldn't miss anything in the third. Kind of cooled off a little bit in the fourth, but just a dominant performance by both these guys. And it's definitely nice to have some other players besides just LeBron and Kawhi have a really good game. It was obviously these guys are star players, and they definitely proved it on that a couple of days ago.
Oh, for sure. And again, these two players again are, like I said, with AD and the PG-13, just so many fun players to watch here in this league. And no doubt those two are one of the best players to watch. Of course, with Paul George, he suffered that gruesome leg injury back in 2014 in the summer of it when he was training for Team USA. And questions were wondering, would he ever be able to play again, be the same player he once was? And I tell you what, he's probably even better than he was before. He's done such a terrific job there. Of course, it was just such a weird trade that went down there with the OKC Thunder, him being signed that big contract, and then he gets traded to the Clippers. And we all know that LA was probably in his heart, because really we were all hoping that he would end up there with the Lakers, but eventually LeBron goes there, Anthony Davis gets traded there. So no doubt being on the Clippers is the best thing for Paul George, and I'm definitely excited to see how this is all going to carry out. And again, so many fun games happening here over the past week and stuff and such, and so many other games, of course, happening as of right now. I'll tell you what, it's just been such a fun time. And when you look at it, of course, we know about the Bucks and Celtics. That was a great game to watch as well. And the Milwaukee Bucks, I'll tell you what, Giannis has just been such a fun player to see him grow. I'll tell you what, him being the MVP last year, it was kind of a shock because we all thought James Harden was going to snag that award there once again. But I'll tell you what, Giannis and the Bucks, they've just been such a fun team to watch. It's always fun, too, when you see these small market teams do such a great job, because we know about the Lakers. Of course, they're out in Los Angeles. That's a big market. New York City's a big market. Chicago's a big market. Of course, the Knicks and the Bulls aren't doing so hot. But with the Bucks, though, with them being a small market team in the city like Milwaukee, not a huge city, but boy, with Giannis though right now, he's done such a phenomenal job. And I'll tell you what, this guy, he's just such a fun player to watch. And I tell you what, with him just keep on, with him getting better and better. And that was the question, is how would these players be when they came off this 4-month rest? Would they be rusty? Yes, they've been rusty at times, but boy, they're really hungry to get back out there and put a show on for the fans, because they know how much the fans have missed it for sure.
Yeah, and obviously during this game, it was a really good game by the Bucks, especially Chris Middleton. As you see, 18 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds for him. Obviously, we know him as a really good scorer, 2-time All-Star now the last 2 years, so he's really improved too. And but yeah, Giannis, obviously, we know what he's capable of, and he had one heck of a game, like you mentioned. And it was definitely fun to watch. But the Celtics too, kind of a really off game for Jason Tatum. He only scored 5 points in the game, but obviously they got scoring from Marcus Smart, who's more of their defensive guard, but he has shown in games that he's capable of scoring, as well as Gordon Hayward. Obviously, had that gruesome injury to his leg a few years ago, but really has been great ever since then. And obviously right here we see his graphics: 17 points, 6 assists, and 9 rebounds. And obviously, he's just been great for them in the bubble so far. And he's been one of their top players alongside Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And obviously, Jason Tatum had an off game. It happens to even the best of players. But, the Celtics are just so deep. They have so many different players that can do so many different things. And, it was a close game. Obviously, I think if Jason Tatum would have had a better game, they probably would have won that game, no problem. But also for the Bucks, they didn't have Eric Bledsoe play in the game either. He hasn't played the last few games actually that have been played in the bubble, so I'm not sure exactly what that's about. But he is there, so not sure if they're just waiting for him in the postseason or what exactly is going to happen. But as soon as they get him back too, I think they're going to be really hard to beat.
Yeah, you talk about Gordon Hayward. They signed a big contract back in the summer 2017 with the Celtics, reuniting him with Brad Stevens. Of course, Gordon Hayward played college basketball there at Butler when Brad Stevens was the coach there. And then, when Gordon Hayward wrote the article in the Players Tribune about leaving Utah to go to Boston, he mentioned how he was really excited to reunite there with Brad Stevens because they could never get the championship there in Butler. But now Gordon Hayward getting this opportunity right here to do it again. And certainly for him, it's been a long road as well, like you mentioned there too, with the injury that he had there. In his very first game, only about 5 or 6 minutes into his debut there with the Celtics. I mean, that's just a terrible thing to happen right there. But luckily for Hayward, though, he's been able to heal up, just keep on progressing from it and playing really good basketball right here. And Jason Tatum, like we mentioned, a very tough game for him. Just 2 out of 18 there, 5 points like you mentioned. And boy, for Jason Tatum, I know the question is, will this continue to carry on? And we know that he did have a struggling game back in November when he was 1-18. But I think for Jason Tatum, again, this is the first game back. I get it. Some players did very well, some players not so well. And Jason Tatum, no doubt, is becoming one of the stars here as an emerging star here in this league and just keeps on getting better and better each and every season. And no doubt, I think this game for him, not his best, but he's definitely going to bring out a lot more fight in him, I would say, as these games carry on.
And the Celtics actually played the Blazers, and he scored over 30 points too, and that was the next game. So obviously, he did prove that. Obviously, it was just a little bit of rust. First game in the bubble, that wasn't a scrimmage game. So I wasn't really worried about him at all, and obviously he proved it. He's an all-star. He's gonna have games like that. All good players do. And, it was an off game, like we mentioned, but, no need to fear. Jason Tatum is here.
No, exactly. When these players have tough games, no doubt. I remember when Kevin Durant had a really tough game in the postseason. A newspaper from OKC said Mr. Unreliable, which I thought, no doubt, was just a cheap shot to him. And then the next game, he scored 36 points. So that definitely fueled him for sure. And for Jason Tatum, look, I get it. These critics don't bother players, but no doubt, though, they're not too worried about it. And for Jason Tatum to continue to keep on playing great basketball, scoring over 30 points against the Trailblazers, no doubt that's a sign that he just had an off game, and no doubt he is going to be back for the Celtics. And the Celtics, no doubt, one of the top teams in the East, are out there in the Eastern Conference right now, competing with Milwaukee. But no doubt Milwaukee is going to get that first seed, no doubt. And again, with these two, with Giannis and Gordon Hayward, again, Giannis is just such a phenomenal player. Every single year, he is just getting better and better. Still very young. Came into the league when he was just, I think, 19 years old, and came out of Greece. Of course, he's called the Greek Freak for a reason.
Oh yeah,
such a phenomenal player, and again, just such a really good performance there by him. For Gordon Hayward, as we can see there, it's just 6 out of 14. Not, of course, what you would hope there for him, but the Celtics team, no doubt, as they keep on playing, they've gotten better and better, and I'm really excited to see how these games are going to carry on, because come playoff time, this is going to be a whole different level, I would say. Of course, it always is, but I feel it's going to be different, though, around this time, because, look, they've had 4 months off because of the COVID-19 pandemic. They're hungry to get back out there and fight for a championship. No doubt these players will be giving it 150%.
Yeah, obviously, it will be a little bit weird during the playoffs. Obviously, home court advantage won't really matter as much. Obviously, the NBA, kind of like you mentioned earlier, does like to implement the virtual fans and everything, but it's still not a complete home game. I think it's still going to be exciting basketball, and obviously we see these players rev up the engines too in the playoffs. You feel that intensity too. And I think it's going to be a really fun playoff series. And, these guys are, a little rusty, kind of like you mentioned earlier. And, good thing that they are playing these regular season games. So hopefully they can be ready to go for the playoffs. And, I'm really excited for the playoff basketball every single year. Every time the playoffs come around, it's always a great, exciting time. Obviously, yeah, it'll be a little different this year, but doesn't take away from the excitement.
Absolutely, and playoff basketball, no doubt, is it's such a fun thing to watch, because we see the players bring out a lot more energy, a lot more passion, and then we see a little bit more scuffles happening. Of course, this time around, you got to be careful with that. So because obviously of the protocols, obviously you can't social distance much there in basketball, but just got to really try and keep much more of a cool temper and not get so hot headed. But boy, I tell you what, like I said, the Lakers, Clippers, Bucks, Celtics, the Mavericks and Rockets, the Houston or the Texas matchup really is what people were calling it. That was a fun matchup to watch here. And Luka Doncic, again, this has been such a fun player to watch. Again, only 21 years old, been playing pro basketball. Of course, he played overseas there, been playing since he was a teenager, really, and been able to come here to the NBA and play like he's been in this league for about 10 years now. Again, such a phenomenal player. And James Harden and Russell Westbrook, two of the stars here in the league as well. Both were teammates there when they played for the Thunder. Harden, of course, got traded to the Rockets back in 2012, and then Westbrook coming over here last summer. Hard to believe it's been over a year now since that trade was completed, and they're still in the in the same season.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, right now at this point, you take with what you can. And for these two teams here, no doubt, this is going to be a back and forth matchup there. But overall, though, just a fun game to watch. Like I said, Luka Doncic really becoming that emerging star now for the Dallas Mavericks. Kristaps Porzingis also has been a really fun player to watch too, coming off the ACL injury he had there with the Knicks back in 2018. He's recovered very well, playing at a high level himself. And I'll tell you what, these two teams, no doubt, they couldn't possibly meet in the playoffs if things tend to kind of turn out the way as we're hoping to. But right now, though, because we know with the Mavericks, they've definitely been a team that was struggling over the past couple of years. In Dirk Nowitzki's last seasons, they were not putting together some good results. But then Luka Doncic comes in. Dirk stays there one more year to mentor him in a way, because both guys come from overseas. So that's a good duel to have right there. Dirk retires last year, and now this is Doncic's team right now. Maybe Kristaps too. You can say these guys control the team there. And I'll tell you what, these two players do such a phenomenal job for the Mavericks, putting together good results.
Yeah, this is definitely the future for the Dallas Mavericks. Obviously, Kristaps is locked in for about 5 years with the Mavericks, and obviously they're not going to let Doncic get away. He's a once-in-a-generational kind of player, and kind of like you mentioned too, yeah, I mean, he's been playing basketball since he was about 13 years old in Europe, so he's been obviously trained, and obviously he does have incredible talent, but he is just so dang good, and every time you watch him, it seems like he's getting better and better. But yeah, for the Rockets too, Russell Westbrook and James Harden obviously had a really good game in this one too. A lot of scoring by both sides as well, which just made it really entertaining as an NBA fan. And also the small lineup for the Rockets has worked out really well too. And I was a little skeptical at first when Mike D'Antoni first implemented this, but it turned out really well. And PJ Tucker, kind of at the center, has worked out really well for them. And obviously they do have Tyson Chandler on the bench, so if they do need to match up, they obviously can put him out there. But for the games, even before the bubble, they really didn't even need to do that. And obviously it's worked out really well for them, and they played pretty well in the bubble so far.
They certainly have, and again, both these two teams, such a phenomenal, high-scoring basketball game, and no doubt, this was again back and forth matchup. A lot of people around, fans of basketball, they're kind of like, well, they don't play defense no more, but the game has gotten so much faster now. It's really kind of tough to play defense here. The transition to offense can be really tough at times for these players, and that's why we're starting to see more of these high-scoring games now these days. And I'll tell you what, with this matchup here between the Rockets and the Mavericks, no doubt, if these two teams could be consistent on during the game, no doubt this was going to be a high-scoring game. And of course, it went into overtime for a reason, because both these teams just kept on fighting so hard to try and get that win. Obviously, the Rockets did come out there with the win eventually, but boy, for the Mavericks, so again, Luka Doncic, like I mentioned, he's just become such a fun player to watch here in this league. And again, basketball has become such a more of a global sport now. We're seeing players from overseas. Of course, we mentioned Giannis, Luka Doncic. Of course, Dirk came from Germany, which was such a great thing. And to see players come from different countries and just tear up the league, that's so much fun, because it's not just guys coming from the United States doing great. It's guys from all over the world now playing basketball, coming here on a to play for an NBA team, and it's just, again, it's been so much fun to see these players develop. And of course, they're still very young too. Like we mentioned, Doncic is still only 21 years old. And boy, by the time he gets into by the time he reaches 30 years old, who knows where he'll still be at? He's still definitely going to be a top player for sure in this league.
Yeah, obviously a great game by both sides. Obviously, as you can see from the graphic, the Rockets did win the game 153-149, but just an excellent game. And I think I remember watching this game. I was actually doing some graphics before, and I looked over to my TV and I saw the score was 85-75, and this was obviously the night before when the Clippers and Lakers played. It was a little bit lower scoring in that one. But yeah, I just remember seeing the halftime score was like 85-75, and I was like, oh, then the end of the third quarter, I'm like, wait, what? This is halftime? And I literally could not believe it. So obviously a really high intensity offensive battle by both sides, and it was one heck of a game too. And yeah, hopefully we can see them play against each other somewhere down the line if it works out. But yeah, it was a really good game.
It certainly was, and boy, again, so many players just tearing it up right here around the league so far since they've been able to come back. And I'll tell you what, when you look at the two stars of the game, James Harden and Kristaps Porzingis, boy, these guys really did such a good job. Of course, Kristaps there, 13 out of 26. Definitely missed some shot opportunities right there, and James Harden, though, having the much better game overall with his scoring accuracy. But I think, though, this is definitely going to be, no doubt, we could see these two teams meet up even more. Again, if they do meet in the playoffs, and the intensity is going to be at a much different level when that time does come around. But, again, I'm really excited to see how this is all going to play out. And, again, just going to be really exciting to see these two teams and, of course, all these players, too, fight it out.
Yeah, obviously that was those were the best players of the game, and it was kind of funny, too. James Harden's first game in the bubble, almost scores 50 points, and it's like, he left off just where he was. So really good game by him. Obviously Russell Westbrook and Luka Doncic almost had triple doubles. Actually, Luka did have a triple double. Russell was about 2 assists shy of that. But yeah, obviously they were sharing the ball really well with their teammates, getting boards, and also scoring a lot of points. So obviously we know Russell is capable of that, and Luka too. I mean, he's just putting himself in that elite category. Obviously we've known for a while now, but that game really did kind of prove it too.
Yeah, certainly did. And again, these two players, no doubt, and of course all of these four players really just tore it up, and it's just been so much fun to watch, and really can't wait to see how this is all going to carry on. And again, so many good basketball games happening here over this past week, and of course going into last week as well. And of course, one other game that of course we really focused on was the Pelicans and the Memphis Grizzlies. With the Pelicans, we know Zion Williamson, no doubt, this kid is going to be a superstar in this league. And of course, with the Grizzlies, with Joe Moran, boy, these two guys, these two phenomenal rookies, just playing at a high level, already playing like they've been in the league for a few years now. And with Zion, again, it's just a tough break for him early on in the season. He had to miss the first couple months due to a knee injury, tore his meniscus, had surgery, and then comes back and just starts tearing it up. We saw his days at Duke last year, such a phenomenal young man and player, of course, but he's already been playing in the league like he's already been playing for 5 years now, it seems like. And same with Joe Moran, both these two rookies just tearing it up. And we thought there, when the Pelicans got the first overall pick last year in the 2019 NBA draft, we thought that can keep Anthony Davis to maybe stay with New Orleans to play with Zion, but AD still wanted to go out to LA to play with LeBron and just kind of revive his career in a way. So I definitely think with Zion now kind of trying to be being the leader of this Pelicans team, and I like where the Pelicans are at. They got Zion there, Lonzo Ball is there now, coming from LA. Same with Brandon Ingram. With Lonzo Ball, really been able to kind of revive his career as well. We saw there his first 2 years with the Lakers just didn't go how it was supposed to. Sure, his rookie season, averaging just over 10 points a game, but then getting hurt, having some knee injuries. But next season they get LeBron, so you kind of figure that's going to help him out in some ways, but that didn't. Instead, he continued to kind of decline a little bit. Wasn't really showing what he once was at UCLA. But I think with Lonzo Ball going somewhere different to New Orleans, not being out there in such a big market in LA, because he's played out there throughout all of his basketball career, in high school, Chino Hills, and like I mentioned, UCLA in college for one season, and now with the Lakers his first 2 years. But now he's been able to go somewhere different, kind of revive himself, because we know his dad, LeVar Ball, kind of sure likes to talk a lot for sure. But I think going to New Orleans was the best thing for Lonzo Ball, being able to kind of go out into a more area where it's not too crazy like it is out in LA a lot of the time, but I think though for Lonzo Ball and for Brandon Ingram, this was the best thing that's happened to them so far in their young NBA careers.
Yeah, Lonzo and Brandon Ingram. Obviously, we know Brandon Ingram was a first-time All-Star. He's been playing absolutely incredible and probably tied with Zion with their as their best player. He's just been playing absolutely crazy, and obviously, we knew that Brandon Ingram had that potential, but for to do it like just kind of like a light switch, I mean that definitely kind of threw some people off guard. But Lonzo Ball, yeah, he definitely has improved as well. Like you mentioned, I think just kind of getting away from LA, being on a different team, having some different players, it's really helped him out, and he's just done a really good job of sharing the ball. Obviously, he still has to work on his shooting a little bit, but as the offseason will come, he'll probably improve on that even more. He gets better and better every season, so yeah, it's definitely exciting. And for the Memphis Grizzlies, obviously Ja Morant kind of struggled in this game. Wasn't his best game by any means. He only scored about 11 points of 5 for 21 shooting. So it's definitely a game that he's going to look back on. And the Grizzlies in general have just struggled in the bubble so far. Definitely this game though, they're going to look back at it and try to forget it. They had it at points where they easily could have won the game, but just kind of some turnovers and things like that kind of ultimately screwed them up.
Yeah, for sure. And I think definitely for the Grizzlies, tough game for them for sure. Just losing there by 10 points. But overall, though, it's the first game back. These two teams, no doubt, are trying to get into the playoffs for sure. With the Pelicans, though, it's been kind of a tough stretch for them lately. But overall, though, it's definitely been fun. It's been fun to watch these two players, and definitely excited to see how this is all going to play out. And for Zion Williamson and John Morant, definitely these two, these two young studs are definitely going to be players to watch as years carry on. And it's kind of starting to see like a new wave of guys coming through, like we mentioned there with Doncic and now Zion, John Morant, and of course there's so many other guys out there too, like RJ Barrett. Can he become that star for the Knicks, as they're hoping? Because the Knicks last year basically got screwed up by the NBA draft lottery, but it is what it is now at this point. But certainly though, it's going to be a lot of fun players to watch as the years carry on, see what they do as they get older, keep on progressing and stuff. Same with Lonzo Ball too, still very young, getting better, and hopefully he can keep getting better as seasons go on. But now kind of jumping into here, there's been, like I said, a lot of fun players to watch throughout this, since the NBA, came back, and going now to, of course, going to the race, or going to now these players. TJ Warren, of course, no doubt, for the Pacers, 53 points. Again, holy cow, what a game that he had.
Yeah, definitely incredible.
Did not see that coming from him at all from the Pacers. It just was not, I did not expect that, of course, with the Pacers. Been able to really kind of keep it going throughout, since they traded Paul George back to the Thunder. But then eventually they were able to kind of keep it going still for them. And I'll tell you what, probably nobody expected this performance out of the Pacers, especially from TJ Warren for sure.
Yeah, the Pacers have been playing a lot better. And yeah, TJ Warren has just kind of exploded in the bubble. Not really anybody was really expecting this. Definitely the Pacers are happy. They have another guy in Oladipo and also Miles Turner, and now TJ Warren as their kind of like big three in a way. So obviously, yeah, incredible game by TJ Warren. And also on the 76ers, they had Joel Embiid play really well for them. As you can see the highlights here from Joel Embiid, he scored 42 points as well, or 41, excuse me.
Yeah, Joel Embiid really, since he came into the league, missed his first 2 years due to foot injuries there for the Philadelphia 76ers. But since he's been able to come back and play basketball, been really doing such a good job for them, and just keeps on getting better and better each and every season. And I'll tell you what, Joel Embiid, for a guy who likes to talk a lot of smack to players, he's definitely been one of the fun players to watch here throughout this league too. And to see the Sixers kind of come together here, of course, with Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, no doubt that and of course Al Horford signing them within this past offseason as well, or last offseason really, when you look at it calendar wise. It's definitely been a fun team to watch too, and see what they can possibly do when the postseason comes around.
Yeah, Joel Embiid was kind of skeptical of coming to the bubble at first, but he ended up coming because he needed to support his team, and he ended up doing it there. And somebody else who really needed to support their team was Michael Porter Jr. for the Denver Nuggets in the West against the OKC Thunder. Ended up beating them. He scored 37 points, 12 rebounds, and shot really well from the field, 12 of 16. Just an incredible game from the rookie. Hasn't really played that much, this season, but he's definitely getting a lot better.
Michael Porter Jr. only played just a few games at Missouri, his college, during his college career, and due to back injuries, had a couple back surgeries as well, and really was wondering would he be able to even play and stuff. And he's really becoming such a good player as he's been able to keep on progressing from these injuries and doing such a good job there. So I think for Michael Porter Jr. becoming this star possibly for the Nuggets, that's going to be big for them going down the road and stuff, because we know about the Nuggets. They are a really good team there too out in the West, but I think with Michael Porter Jr. becoming that superstar for them, that's going to be huge for them, and I'm really excited to see how he's going to continue to carry on.
Yeah, just last night, AD and the Lakers took on the Utah Jazz. Obviously, AD scored 42 points, had 12 rebounds, 3 steals for the Lakers, and they ended up winning this game. Really impressive game by AD. Obviously, we talked about him a little bit earlier in the broadcast, and just an incredible performance by him, as we see a steal right here, just kind of active, good hands right there, as you saw. Just a really good overall game. LeBron played really well as well. Didn't score as many points, but kind of gave that responsibility to Anthony Davis, and he really just played extremely well, and definitely would not have won the game without him playing lights out.
Absolutely, it's just been such a fun team to watch. Anthony Davis really going to the Lakers. It's just such a phenomenal player. Of course, it was great with the Pelicans, but I think going out to LA was the best thing for him. He knew what was best for him, and again, of course, the way he handled the trade, it maybe wasn't the best, but the Pelicans were basically saying we're not gonna trade you, we don't want you to go anywhere. But eventually, though, he kind of forced his way out by saying, I'm not going to re-sign with him when I become a free agent. So I definitely get where he's come from with that. And for the Lakers to get AD, that was no doubt the best thing for them. And as right now, of course, we see some teams are still trying to fight to get into the postseason. I tell you what, it's been kind of nice how they did this whole thing with Adam Silver, because we know that some teams, of course, like the Pelicans, like the Spurs, still trying to fight to get into that. To get into the playoffs. And so that was really cool how they were able to let these teams still fight it out to try and get into that postseason, to get into the 8th seed spot. So I'm really excited to see how that's all going to work out. I give a lot of kudos to Adam Silver for doing that.
And obviously, the Grizzlies, they have struggled in the bubble. They've lost all 3 of their games so far. Obviously, they really kind of need to win the next few games. They don't want the Trailblazers or even the Spurs to catch up. Obviously, the Spurs lost yesterday, and the Trailblazers lost against the Celtics as well. So, the Grizzlies still lead at this point, but, there's still a few games left to be played, for that last spot, and it's definitely, anybody's game. It just depends on, who can win out. And obviously, Phoenix, Devin Booker had a game winner over Paul George today in the bubble, and, they're kind of in the hunt now as well. So, really, these teams, can't take the pedal off the gas, and, it's really anybody's battle at this point.
It definitely is. And when you look at a team like the San Antonio Spurs trying to fight to get into the postseason, this will be the first time in so many years, probably since the 1990s, that they've missed a postseason if they do not make the playoffs. So I tell you what, for the Spurs, you've been on the streak for so long. Can you keep it going? Now, it's the question, because we know Greg Popovich, he could put together a really good team. But, of course, with the Spurs right now kind of being at a stage right now where they're not rebuilding, more retooling in a way. But definitely for the San Antonio Spurs, this streak coming to an end of so many consecutive postseason appearances since the 1990s, boy, that's going to be one that, that'd be a tough swallow right there for sure.
Yeah, definitely would be weird to not have the Spurs in the postseason, but they're still in the hunt. Anything's possible, and we're just gonna have to wait and see. Obviously, there's a few games left for every team to be played in the bubble, and it's definitely gonna be an exciting next couple days of games.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely gonna be really exciting to see how this is all gonna carry on still, and I'm definitely really excited to see for some games that we have coming up right here. Of course, Carter, this was your idea about some predictions and stuff coming up here. So it's called Who You Got. So, of course, for the first game, we got the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Los Angeles Lakers. I think this one for me is pretty obvious. I'm going with the Lakers. Of course, with the Thunder, I saw them out in New York. They were such a fun team to watch with Chris Paul out there. Glad I got to see him out there before the NBA shut down basically for 4 straight months. But I think but no doubt about the Lakers, though, they got that better advantage, I think, over the Thunder. You got LeBron, AD, Kyle Kuzma, who's been doing a pretty good job for him too. So I definitely am taking the Lakers here in this matchup.
Yeah, I think I also have the Lakers winning this game. Obviously, the Thunder, I think to a surprise for everybody, they've played, the Thunder have played really well this season. Obviously, Chris Paul is a big reason for that. Shai Gilgeous Alexander, too, has played really well for them. So, yeah, they just have a good amount of depth, and it's definitely going to be, an interesting game. I could see it going either way, but yeah, I think the Lakers, obviously, they have LeBron, AD. AD's cooking right now, and LeBron's kind of figuring things out as well. So, I definitely can see, it being a close one, but I do have the Lakers winning this one.
Yeah, definitely going to be a fun matchup for sure. And of course, our next thing that we have here is the Miami Heat versus the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm taking Milwaukee in this one. When you got Giannis on your team right there, it's going to be a really tough matchup there. With the Heat, though, Jimmy Butler, he's done a really good job for him so far this season, too. Of course, I do miss Butler not being on the Bulls right now at this point, but it is what it is now. But I am taking Milwaukee in this matchup. It's going to be a good high-scoring game, I think, but I do think Milwaukee will pull away here with the win. Like I said, when you got Giannis on your team, that's pretty much all you kind of need right there. And, of course, Brook Lopez has done a good job for him, too, this year. Chris Middleton, same for him as well. In Milwaukee, it's not just all about Giannis. You got the good players there to surround them there, too, as well, and I definitely think that's going to help the Bucks get the victory if they do pull out the win.
Yeah, I also do have the Bucks winning this one. Obviously, both teams have a lot of depth on their roster. Obviously, we know that the Heat have Jay Crowder as well as Andre Iguodala now, and the Bucks have been kind of really deep for the last few years as well. Obviously, like you mentioned, Dante DiVincenzo has been playing really good for them. Obviously, he's actually been starting too since Eric Bledsoe hasn't been playing. Brook Lopez, like you mentioned, really good center for them, can score as well. Even Robin Lopez, obviously, it's unfortunate. Obviously, I know you miss him in Chicago, but yeah, I mean, even the brothers have been playing pretty good. So yeah, it's going to be, I think, again, a really close one. Both teams are very good, but I think because the Bucks have Giannis, I really think they're going to win by probably 5 or 6 points.
I'll admit I was pretty heartbroken when Derrick Rose got traded to the Knicks because Robin Lopez came to the Bulls in that trade. But I'll tell you what, I loved Robin Lopez. He was such a fun player to watch. Sure, he wasn't like the superstar in the league and stuff, but such a fun teammate to be around. A good overall basketball player there too. Of course, Brook Lopez, no doubt, is the better brother, you could say. But Robin Lopez was so much fun to watch. Of course, he does not like mascots, as we all know. He's not a mascot lover. He always beats him up. It's kind of hilarious.
He does.
But Robin Lopez, no, it's good to see him on a winning team. He definitely deserves it. Same with Brook Lopez too. It's good to see those two brothers they're playing. I actually got to see him play in Chicago too when the Bulls and Lakers played each other on my 21st birthday. That was really fun to see the Lopez brothers go after each other. I think Robin started chirping at Brook a little bit too, so that's always
just
fun
brotherly love.
Maybe for us that's how it was, but I think for them it was a little bit more intense. But overall, it is what it is at this point. Okay, our last game we got here is the Celtics and the Raptors. For the Raptors, I'll admit, they've had a really good season. Of course, they did lose Kawhi in the offseason after just one season winning the NBA championship. But, hey, what more could you have asked for in that trade? You got a championship. Yes, I'm sure they wanted Kawhi to stay. But overall, though, the Raptors have done a really good job maintaining a decent team still, putting together many wins. But Celtics, like we just talked about there, too, with Jason Tatum. Tough game for him at first. 2 out of 18, but then after that, though, been really doing such a good job. They're scoring 30-plus points, like we mentioned, against the Trailblazers in their next matchup. Against the Raptors, though, this is a tough one right here. I am going to take the Raptors in this one. It's going to be definitely a close game for sure, but I definitely think that the Raptors, though, will just squeak by the Celtics. But again, this game, though, is definitely one of his toss-ups for sure.
Yeah, I do have the Celtics winning this one. I think the Raptors have been absolutely unbelievable this whole season. Obviously, they were the NBA champions last year, and even though they lost Kawhi, they're still a really, really, really good team. Pascal Siakam, great player. Kyle Lowry, obviously, we know what he's capable of, and they're just really deep. Obviously, Serge Ibaka, too. Can't forget about him. Yeah. Their offense is great. Nick Nurse is a great head coach. He's been coaching them fantastically. But yeah, I do have the Celtics winning this one. I think Jason Tatum is going to have a really incredible game. Jaylen Brown too. I think they're both going to have really good games as well. Like you said, it's going to be a close one, definitely. But I probably do give the edge to the Celtics. I think Toronto's just been doing too good. They have to slip up a little bit.
such a lot of good matchups happening here throughout the league right now. And of course, it is pretty odd to be watching basketball here early August. Of course, right now, had things gone as planned, if COVID-19 had not happened right now, of course, we'd be watching mostly Team USA basketball had that been the case. But right now, I think we're all happy with what we're getting right now from the NBA. It's just been such a fun time now. I've been able to kind of just sit back, not worry about anything, just watching basketball games, enjoy it. And I'll tell you what, it's just been so much fun to just see these players come out and still play at a high level, because that's kind of because that's one of the biggest thing people were, like fans were wondering, would the players still maintain that high capacity, at the playing level? And certainly they've done that so far.
Yeah, a lot of good matchups, and the good thing too about having everybody in a central location is you can have these really good matchups. We've seen a lot of good games on TV recently. Obviously, there's been the 4-month break because of the coronavirus, but whoever is in charge of kind of coming up with this schedule did a great job, because all the games so far have been absolutely incredible and amazing and fun and entertaining to watch. So really no complaints here. And it's just like you said, really good to have basketball back.
It really is, and same with baseball too. Of course, we all know that's not. There's a lot of question marks about that as well. Football, same thing. It's just so many question marks happening. But with the NBA and of course the hockey as well, it's been really cool to see these two sports just do such a good job of inserting that bubble, keeping these players where they need to be at, and just come out and just perform at a very high level. It's been really exciting to see that here. Well, we are going to take our first break here, but when we come back, we'll dive into some football talk here. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about there too, of course, with COVID-19. And of course, Antonio Brown, will he be back on the team as well? Seattle, maybe? Are you thinking
we'll see. I don't know.
Josh Gordon or AB? Who do you want?
I probably got Josh Gordon. I like Josh Gordon.
So you're saying that you want a controversial player over a controversial player. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, either way, you're still going to get screwed probably. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a Bears fan. I shouldn't be talking. Anyway, we'll take our first break here. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. welcome back to Timeout with the Guys podcast. I am Brad Burton. Alongside with me here is Carter Foley. Good to be here with you this evening. I thought we had a really good first show right there to start out there with the NBA. Now, of course, we're diving into the NFL. And I know we talked about it too when we started off with the show with baseball and football, really just having a lot of question marks over their heads right now with how they've been handling the COVID-19 protocols, but trying to get the players to be safe. But then, of course, you see players opting out, and throughout the NFL, it's been no shock to see players from multiple teams, or from many teams, I should say, really starting to opt out this year and come back in 2021 when hopefully things will be much safer.
Yeah, definitely don't blame those guys that are opting out. They're thinking about their family, their loved ones, including themselves too. We don't know what kind of issues that these guys have. Obviously, they could affect them, not at all, or it could affect them really bad. So definitely don't blame those guys. They're just, thinking about other people. And I think that's obviously just the best thing that they could do in this situation. So, definitely don't blame them. But, definitely sucks to lose like kind of one of your favorite players. But, you have to understand where they're coming from as a human being.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, with me being a Chicago Bears fan, their star defensive tackle, Eddie Goldman, opted out this season. No doubt that is a big blow to the Bears defensive line. But at the end of the day, I totally understand where they're coming from with this stuff. It's just not worth it because who knows how teams are going to be handling these types of issues. Now, I get it. Like we've seen on social media, there's been at the training facilities, they're establishing the 6 feet rule, social distancing as best as they can, physically just try to not to touch much as you can. And I think that's very good. I think that's very good by those teams. But I think for right now, though, these players still have obviously major concerns about playing this year because we all know in football, you can't social distance out there a whole lot. You'll be sweaty, getting dirty, all that stuff. So I definitely understand where these players are coming from. And like you mentioned there too, a lot of these guys, they have families. They don't want to put them at risk, especially if they got younger kids there as well, because they know eventually they have to go to school if they decide to even go that route. But that's a different story here and there. But overall, though, I do think I understand where they're coming from. I absolutely understand where they're coming from. But I think, though, at the end of the day, it's just going to be come weeks 4 and 5 if they even get to that point in the season. What's going to happen? Because if COVID cases are still skyrocketing, you have to think that Roger Goodell is going to do something here. Is he going to suspend the season? Will he just call it off entirely? Again, so many questions here that we don't even know, but can't be answered just yet.
Yeah, I definitely don't think the NFL season will finish if they continue to do what they're planning on doing, which is just treating it like a normal season. I think they, like you mentioned, I think they get 4 or 5 weeks into it, and then there's going to be a huge outbreak that they're just not going to be able to control. They're going to have to take a few months off, and then they're going to have to figure it out. What are they going to do? Are they going to be in a bubble situation? Are they going to? I mean, obviously, it would be incredibly hard for them to do that, but it's things that they have to figure out. Obviously, they're a $1 billion corporation and league, so they have to figure it out. If they want to lose a little bit of money or a lot of money, they got to think about these things. And at this moment, I think it seems like they're more just kind of praying that everything will be okay. And sometimes that's really not the best thing you can do. Obviously, I mean, we've used this comparison a few times already, but look at the NBA and look at the MLB. That's what's going to happen if you don't go into a bubble situation.
I would say enough with the praying right now and just take action. No, seriously, take action. I mean, obviously we want to pray this goes away quickly, but obviously right now we're in times where things were getting a little bit better at one point, but now we're starting to see it's just back to where it was, possibly even worse too. So I definitely think for the NFL, they got to implement some strict rules. No, I get it. There's more challenges along the way than with the NBA and the NHL. I totally get that, but at the same time, though, you have to at least make sure, though, that these players and teams are going to be safe, because when you travel and stuff, we know that states, they have certain restrictions and stuff. I'm sure they'll make some exceptions there for these for those teams that got to play there. But you got to think, though, at this point right now, no fans, because we know that Philadelphia, New York, they're having no fans allowed at all, which I totally get. It's going to suck for the players because we know that they feed off of the fans when it's a big game going on, if they're doing really good or they've been struggling. But then eventually, though, they're starting to pick it back up and get better during that game. And we know that the fans really play a big part in those games. So again, I get it. With no fans, it's going to suck this year because it's always fun to see them on TV, see them cheering. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the bigger picture here. Just get through this, get through this year. 2020, no doubt, has been a very rough year in sports. But at the end of the day, though, you got to think big here about going forward and beyond.
Yeah, definitely is unfortunate that there won't be fans in some of the arenas this season, but I think you just have to protect your players and your coaches and everything like that. It's just a smart thing to do in this situation. You don't want to get 70,000 people, or even if you're in Dallas, 100,000 people, in a stadium and just have everybody watching a game. And spreading COVID, basically. I mean, it's just that's not what has to happen. So obviously, I think those places like New York and Philadelphia are taking the right initiative, to prevent that stuff from happening. But then again, it's still going to be hard to protect all those guys, even when they're traveling or when they're at home. And there's just a lot of unknown right now with the NFL. So hopefully they can figure it out.
Yeah, it'd be no shock too if the city of Chicago was to say no fans allowed there at Soldier Field. Again, I totally get it because at the end of the day, you got to keep these players safe. But I think the time to opt out though, the deadline is Thursday, and of course we're seeing some players, of course, like Odell Beckham Jr. was kind of critical of the rule, but yet he's still playing, but taking a lot of heat though for being critical of it, but then also still playing. But I think overall he still wants to play football. Granted, he knows what risk he's taking. So I definitely understand where, where he's being critical. But at the same time, though, I think he still wants to just go out there and play football, just kind of keep it going and stuff. Because with the Cleveland Browns, who knows what they can do this year? Can Baker Mayfield take that next step to become the quarterback that they want him to be? Because last year was a setback for him, like so many quarterbacks, of course, around the league. But again, I totally get where they're coming from with this. And at the end of the day, it's just one day at a time, really, and stuff. I know at this point of the year, I'd be really excited because